Hello, my name is Emily and I go around online as Eloquence My Dear. I'm on Twitter and Tumblr and YouTube, and I wanted to talk about the Sherlocked Convention of 2015 and how that was for me. Basically, if you went to the convention and you really enjoyed yourself, I suggest not watching this video. Because I didn't hate it. It wasn't terrible. But I'm not going to be saying some overall positive things about it. I did not have the best experience. Nothing went drastically wrong. There was just a significant lack of much. I wanted to share some thoughts about it because lots of people on Twitter particularly I saw saying, "Oh my god, I'm so jealous of everyone who went to the Sherlock Convention." And I wanted to just give my perspective, which is don't be. Don't be jealous. Unless your main need in life is to meet Rupert Graves and Benedict Cumberbatch and Una Stubbs, don't be jealous of people who went to the Sherlock Convention, because there wasn't much of anything for people who weren't meeting actors. I will say that I did not go to meet anyone. We could just about afford tickets, 3 tickets to get to London for one day and go to the convention on the cheapest tickets, so £30 tickets, which came to £90, plus £80 to get to London, which is already nearing £200, not counting food and drink and stuff. So that's already a lot. And we couldn't afford another £20, £30, £40, £50 to attend one of the talks in the main stage with like Andrew Scott or Benedict Cumberbatch. We couldn't afford to get a picture with or go to one of the meetups with Andrew Scott or Benedict Cumberbatch or Rupert Graves or any of them. It wasn't out of the question, but it was something that would cost so much money for something that I wasn't truly bothered about. I didn't want to go to meet one of them. I wanted to go for the experience of going. The main reason I actually wanted to go was for the John Watson story thing. I think it was advertised as the story of John Watson. To get information about him, to get the canon story, as they kind of advertised it online. The story behind John Watson. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware, that's not what was there. What was there was 2 pieces of paper stuck to a wall. What was advertised as an exhibition was 4 odd paragraphs about where John was born, what university and school he attended, when his birthday is, and about when he got shot. If that's the story of John Watson, that's a very boring life. And we know he's not a very boring man, and that is just the biggest disappointment of it all. Do not advertise it as an exhibition, because it's not. They had a little case with items about him and to do with him in it, but so what? I was expecting the story behind him, something about his sister, his parents, anything about him at university or at school, a proper story about what he was like in the army. And you know what, there was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of, in this fake diary entry or fake quotes from one of his army mates, that he was the laugh around it, and he was a laugh around the camp or whatever, and he was a really good man and he was a good doctor. But that's not his story, is it? That's a little bit of information, and it's just, I knew people were going to post pictures of it online, but I wanted to go to see it in front of me myself. I really didn't expect it to be these printed out pieces of paper. I expected it to be something which looks more professional about him. You know, I expected the Photoshop pictures. I fully expected them. But I expected pages and pages about him. Not a couple of measly paragraphs. So that was a big disappointment. It took me 2 minutes to read it. And that's not an exhibition. That's the thing that I'm most bothered about. Other free things for someone with the cheapest tickets. You could go around the props and costumes. That was okay. I'll be reasonable, that was okay. But it's not something that I get excited about. Maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh my god, they actually wore that. Oh my god, that's actually something that they've touched. Oh my god. But not now. Like, I was 12 and 13 when I had that attitude. Now I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I had that same attitude when I walked past the 221B set, the living room set. I was just like, that's cool. But I'm not going to pay £20-30 to get my picture taken on it. I'm not doing that. Because can't afford it, and it's not something that I'm like, I want to do that actively. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. That set there's cool. The fact that people can take photos on it if they pay £20-30, that's cool. But it's not for me. Meeting the actors, that's cool. People can do it. They can get a photo with them. That's awesome. But it's not for me. And that shouldn't be the focus of the convention. Because then the focus of the convention is money. It's paying money to meet people. Overall, it didn't feel like it was aimed at fans. It felt like it was aimed at money. A group of people didn't get together and say, oh, you know this thing that has a massive fan base, one of the biggest fan bases in the world? Let's do a thing for the fans in the UK and where the programme originates, and let's do one in America as well. It felt like someone said, you know this thing that makes us a lot of money? Let's make an event to make more money. It wasn't catered to fans, it was catered to money making. And someone on Twitter said to me, that sort of convention is for people to meet the actors. And if that's what the convention was for, that's how it should be advertised. It shouldn't be advertised as lots of free events and, oh, you can buy just a £30 ticket. It should be advertised as, pay £200 and you enjoy yourselves. Pay £200 per ticket and you will enjoy yourself. That's how it should be advertised. Not, pay £30 and come and have this fun experience that we won't actually tell you very much about. Because truth is, there's not much. It was a very, very large open room with not much in it. Around the outsides of it, there was the tables where actors were set up. Pay to get anywhere near them. There was also the prop and costume bit, which was about a dozen costumes, so that didn't take up much space. And then there was the photo areas where you get photos with specific actors like Andrew Scott. And then there was merchandise stalls. There was a guy selling the magnifying glasses that Sherlock has and uses in the show for £20 a magnifying glass. By the way, don't get one. They're not worth even £20. Okay, they feel flimsy plastic. I didn't buy one, but I did fiddle with one, and it very, very flimsy. Then there was the merchandise, which was all the printouts, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of online. There was canvases for £35 for one canvas. The printouts were okay, actually. The smallest printouts were 4 for £10, and I got some. They're stuck up on my wall. And that was okay, that was all I bought. And then there was pens and 2 or 3 different t-shirts and some bags, little canvas bags. And then there were some bracelets and some wristbands and a couple of necklaces and a lanyard. And that was it. For merchandise, that was it. Even the merchandise was lacking significantly. Like, there was literally like 2, 3, 4 maybe different types of very skimpy little necklaces, and then some wristbands, and then maybe some key rings, and they were selling, in a BBC shop bit, they were selling DVDs of like Jeremy Brett's Sherlock and BBC Sherlock DVDs, and they were selling the DVDs that have the sort of little statuettes, the busts of Sherlock and John, very expensive. And then they had the some CDs of music from Sherlock, and that was it. Which doesn't seem like a lot, because the DVDs and CDs most people are going to have already. You would presume that most people there will have the DVDs, and what? How little effort was put into it, I have no idea. The t-shirts were really crap. It was like, I love Sherlock, and there was a Hound of the Baskervilles t-shirt. And again, those are things that, as I am a very, very strong fan of Sherlock, I would say that I am a very, very big fan. And yet I was still like, meh, take it or leave it. I think it's partly because we're not rich. We can't just go, oh, that's cool, I'm going to buy it. It has to be, I love this thing, I would really like to spend money on it. And when it's just rich people that can afford to get all these things, which are mediocre, bad attitude. I will say that the attitude of the room, of the people who were there, was also bad. There was not a feeling of excitement, there wasn't a feeling of community at all. I don't know what it's like at conventions usually, because I've never been to one before. I've been to 2 gaming conventions, but never a TV convention, and never a convention that's just about one particular programme. So I don't know what it's like, but I tried to make eye contact and smile at a few people who were around my age, usually female, often wearing like John Locke shirts and stuff, or in cosplay. Tried to smile at people. I got glared at. Were those people glaring at me because they're grumpy people, or because the whole environment of the convention was disappointment? Up to you to decide. But personally, it felt like a lot of people went there and were disappointed. On Twitter, there was a lot of people saying, oh my god, I met Benedict Cumberbatch and I met Rupert Graves, and people are saying, I'm so jealous of that. But there's also a lot of people that, when you dig, there's a lot of people who say, this was badly organised, there's hardly anything here, it's empty, I spent so much money on this and got nothing. And you know what? For us, £200 to get to London and get tickets is a lot. There were people who have spent £700 per ticket and was still disappointed. Because people who spent money on silver tickets, I saw on Twitter, didn't get anything more than I did. They didn't get to skip queues to meet anyone. They didn't get extra for paying extra. They may as well have spent £30 a ticket, like we did. They didn't get anything else. And I was disappointed. £30 a ticket, and my mum was disappointed. For me. And that was £30. 700. I really, really hope that the people who spent 3,000 or 1,000 are happy. They got the experience they wanted to, because we didn't. And if you spent £3,000 and got so little, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh. Anyway, I'll talk about what other free things there were. The talks in general were not free, and I didn't actively want to go to a talk with Andrew Scott or Benedict Cumberbatch. I wasn't like, oh yes, I want to. I was like, £20, £30, I'll pass. I don't really want to. The cost of another ticket, no thanks. I went to the free talks on the second stage. I went to talk with Sue Virtue and two guys from Sherlockology, and that was good. That was actually really good, because Sue Virtue just seems like such a really great person, and it was a Q&A, so people asked questions, and they were just telling stories about filming and stuff, and about her favourite episodes and her favourite scenes, and that literally made my experience. That was the last thing I did. I went to her talk, and I went to a talk with David Varela, who I will explain in a minute. And that, if I hadn't gone to them, I would have been thoroughly disappointed. It's literally only because of them that I didn't come home and rant for 3 hours on Twitter about how terrible it was. David Varela's talk was also very, very good and very funny. David Varela basically made the Sherlock the Network app, and he just seems like a really awesome guy. He was telling stories about filming the little scenes that go into it and how difficult it was to write it and make it, and talking about the future of it possibly. And he's just a really funny guy, and he did a bit of a Q&A as well, and people were asking him about his favourite episodes and stuff, and that was also really good because he was very funny, and Sue Virtue was funny, and thank God they were there, because they made it. They actually made me enjoy some part of it and come away not totally disappointed. Because everything else was just like, oh, look at those actors that I can't go anywhere near. Look at this empty space. Where did all the money go that people spent on it? For real, where did it go? Because they must have known they would make a lot of money from it. People will pay ridiculous amounts of money. People paid £3,000. Those tickets sold out. So where did all those lots of £3,000 go? Hiring the bloody tank? Getting the bus? Getting the taxi in there? Who knows? Because there was so much empty space in the room. If the bus, the tank, and the taxi hadn't been in there, it would have been ridiculously empty. So empty. And as it was very, very slim. There was nothing there. For people who can't pay a lot of money to something like that, it was, look at everything you can't do. Look at everything you can't afford. And that's so wrong. It's so wrong on so many levels. So I hope this was interesting to people who watched it, and I hope this gives an insight into what it was like for people who didn't get their special passes and meet lots of actors. If it was just to meet actors, if you could only enjoy yourself by meeting actors, then advertise it like that. Advertise it as a meet and greet and Q&As that are all paid for. Don't advertise it as something fun when people who buy the cheapest tickets won't have fun. Because it wasn't for fans. It just wasn't. And a lot of people have come away not happy. And if it was for fans, then that shouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened if it was for fans. So, yeah, I hope this gives a slightly biased perspective on the experiences of Sherlocked Con 2015. Ultimately, the clue is in the name. It was a con.